All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to week 6. This week, it's actually a little bit of a shorter week, but we're going to be going over zoonosis, or otherwise known as diseases that are caused by carriers that are typically animals. We're going to get a little bit more into that, but again, should be a little quick. But I do have a few kind of helpful tips to hopefully help condense down what is the important material for this week. So, first, what in the world are zoonosis diseases or zoonotic diseases? Let's go back. My bad with that. Zoonotic diseases are illnesses that are spread by animals to humans. These include any kind of viruses, bacteria, or even parasites. The reason this is relevant is, according to the CDC, almost 6 out of 10 infectious diseases are all zoonotic, or at least they're caused by zoonotic sources. And so, a majority of what we get is actually something that's transferred from an animal to a human. The big focus items for this class will be these 6 that are highlighted here: rabies, Chagas disease, brucellosis, leptospirosis, Ebola, and anthrax. And so we're going to be going through some of these items and some of the relevant material. And so the helpful tools for this week really are going to be not only the week 6 study reading, specifically step 3 has a great and useful table tool while you're studying and while you're filling it out, be able to help condense and kind of look at the information. What I would advise: be very comfortable with, again, those 6 zoonotic diseases and try to think of comparing and contrasting some of the unique attributes and characteristics of each of them. So, what unique features does this disease have? Which ones are kind of related? So, which ones are bacteria? Which ones are viruses? Or which ones are a parasite? And then, are there specific or unique symptoms or vectors that are associated with that disease? Trying to figure out these patterns will help you to be able to recall some of this information. On the exam and also on the quizzes, you're going to be seeing a lot of almost story formatted questions. And I even have a couple practice ones at the end of this, but it needs to be you need to be very comfortable whenever it comes to context clues for deciding what zoonotic disease may be present. So let's go ahead and dive in and start looking at the very first one, which is rabies. So rabies, it is a viral infection. It's primarily transmitted to people from infected animals, typically through dogs, bats, or even raccoons. So again, you can see from some of these pictures, some of the examples that could be from that movie Old Yeller, if you remember that, how the ending of it, spoiler alert, I mean, it is almost like a 40, 50-year-old film, but spoiler alert, the individual or the dog dies at the end because they contract rabies from fighting off a rabies infected animal that was trying to attack the kid. Same thing if you're a fan of The Office. Don't forget Michael Scott's Dunder Mifflin Scranton Meredith Palmer Memorial Celebrity Rabies Awareness Fun Run Pro-Am Race for the Cure was all about solving a already cured disease known as rabies. So it is wonderful, it is curable. But it's also important to understand some of the symptoms that are associated with rabies that kind of set it apart. A lot of it has to do with excessive drooling, such as that picture down at the bottom. So again, dogs drool normally, but this is even more so. Next, erratic behavior. So sometimes you'll see a dog and they're just doing things that they wouldn't normally do, or they seem overly aggressive. That could be a sign that it may have rabies. And again, as well, one thing, Michael Scott, he brought this up, but rabies causes a fear of water or hydrophobia. That's actually correct, in that rabies can cause that kind of perception of as far as water and causing an ultimate or irrational fear of water if you're infected with rabies. So some of the symptoms in humans, so cerebral dysfunction, so again, that kind of association with water, or even just kind of balance issues could be an indication, severe agitation, and also death. The interesting thing, rabies is curable. However, if left untreated, it can result in an individual dying from it. So that's why the common thing is if you are interacting with an animal, especially if it's not your animal, if you're interacting with an animal and they do happen to bite you or swap fluids in some way, it's consider getting a rabies shot just in case. That way you can be able to hopefully take those extra precautions, as this is a still fairly serious disease. Next, we'll go into Chagas disease. So Chagas, one of the unique kind of attributes with it is a parasite that actually lives inside of the Chagas insect. So right there's some pictures there. Most commonly, the Chagas can be found in Central America and South America, a few different locations in the U.S. You could be able to find this, but it's predominantly in Central and Southern America. And so the biggest things whenever Chagas with it is they like to be able to feed actually onto the blood and the fluids of animals and also with people. So they may find an individual that is sleeping and they will go in and it will bite the individual. So they eat, they're gonna poop right where they are at, and then they're gonna leave. The parasitic or parasite is actually found inside of the Chagas insect. And so whenever it defecates onto that now freshly opened wound, that's where that infection could be able to take place. The symptoms that we typically see, so it's also illustrated in that picture, there's going to be immediately swelling around the bite area, a dilated esophagus or colon as well. It's pretty limited on the type of symptoms. It's not that serious. However, it can be definitely annoying kind of with this, and it is a type of infection. Chagas also is known as the kissing bug, just because of that association they have with as far as typically biting somewhere around the face, and that association that it is the bite, then defecating, and then ultimately the infection spreading. But again, unique attribute with this is they are a parasite in comparison to the other 6 or other 5, I guess. Next, brucellosis. So brucellosis is a bacterial infection that is occurred mostly from animals or animal products, most commonly unpasteurized milk products. So the milk that you get in the store has been through the pasteurization process. It is actually a superheating process by which they purify or get rid of a majority of the bacteria that's naturally present in raw milk. One of the biggest issues whenever it comes to raw milk actually is an overabundance of bacteria that could be present within it itself. And there's debates whether or not pasteurization or unpasteurization, the pros and cons, which one is better, possibly some loss in nutrient value. But with the possibility of brucellosis happening, you should shy away from raw milk, mostly due to the possibility of these types of infections. Some of the symptoms that could be there, and it's illustrated kind of in that picture, a lot of arthritis type symptoms, so pains in your joints and in your muscles, and overall kind of fatigue or malaise, but it can also cause swelling in your heart, which very big issue. We want to make sure that our ticker is kind of working appropriately, and that we're not overstressing it as well. Common vectors, really think anything that could be able to produce milk. So sheep, goats, pigs, dogs, camels, cows, technically any of those things. Fortunately, I don't think anyone drinks dog milk, so I think that one should be all right as far as spreading to humans, but any of these other ones, and I guess pig milk as well, but any of these other ones could potentially be fair game whenever it comes to them. So again, brucellosis, it's a bacteria found in milk products. Next, leptospirosis. So leptospirosis is caused by bacteria similar to brucellosis. This is predominantly spread through the urine of infected animals. So one of the interesting things is that because it is spread in the urine, so for example, if a deer were to have leptospirosis and it were to pee inside of a lake or a river or a pond, and an individual were to step into that pond, kind of like in that bottom right picture, and that person has there's a lot of ifs. If that person were to have an open wound or an open sore, it's possible that this bacteria could get into their body through that kind of passage of the urine, especially because whenever it comes to the leptospirosis causing bacteria, it can survive weeks to even months in soil and water. It's very resilient whenever it comes to it. So it's really important as far as if you are an avid kind of outdoor person, wearing the proper PPE, proper shoes, as well as making sure there's no cuts or anything before you enter into a foreign body of water. It could have this type of bacteria into it. Some of the symptoms could be able to cause high fever, jaundice. So again, that's a yellowing of the skin and eyes, like this individual up on the top right, and as well kidney damage could cause from this due to that stress on the kidneys from this overall infection. Some of the typical vectors that you might find with this is cattle, mice and rats, horses, deer, dogs, mongooses. That one was a specific one that was called out, and buffaloes. I don't know what the plural is actually for that. I should probably have Googled that beforehand. But there's a multitude of animals that could be a potential vector for this. But again, bacteria, it is predominantly spread through the urine of infected animals. And one of the key characteristics, unlike the other five, is that it can cause jaundice. So some of the important things to be able to be looking out for whenever it comes to this material. Next, Ebola. This one is a very hot topic, and I not only bring that up because of the #1 New York Times best-selling book, The Hot Zone, but it occasionally circulates in the media. You probably have heard about Ebola at one point, whether in your own country or whether in just it likes to circulate in the media because it's a very interesting disease. It's a very quick-acting disease, and it's very deadly. Has a high virulence, if you will, which means that it kills its host very quickly. So Ebola is a virus. Most often it's found in African countries. Most of that because of the common vectors being bats, monkeys, and apes. That's just the common source that you find it, and it's a common breeding ground for Ebola whenever you hear about it in the news as well. The interesting thing about Ebola is it's very effective whenever it comes to spreading between hosts. It typically spreads through direct contact, so it's not really aerosolized in any way, but blood or other bodily fluids going from an infected individual to a healthy individual, it will not only spread very easily, but there's a high chance that the individual is going to now become infected because of it. Just because you associate with someone who's infected with the disease doesn't mean they're going to get it. That's not necessarily true for Ebola. There's a very good chance you're going to get it because of how effective this virus is in spreading and infecting other individuals. So coming in contact with mucous membranes or broken skin, so again, cuts on your arm or various types of damage to your skin, or mucous membranes such as your mouth, your nose, your eyes, any of these things could cause that direct contact spread of infection. Some of the symptoms include bleeding out of your mouth and your eyes, so red eyes, bruising, as well as organ failure and ultimately death as well. That picture on the top right as well, as far as the doffing procedures of PPE, is taken very seriously. Again, as far as how easily it can be able to spread from this. There was actually an interesting story kind of related to that book, The Hot Zone, back in, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, whenever the United States had an Ebola scare in Texas. It was actually associated with the University of Texas. They have I believe it was a BLS lab #3, which it deals with a lot of these highly contaminated diseases or highly infectious diseases that could cause substantial damage to a population. And there was actually a spread, so only, I believe, about 3 or 4 people were infected with this, but they were all individuals associated with this lab. And what it was boiled down to on how it kind of got out, how this outbreak kind of started, was that the nurses that were associating or interacting with this Ebola sample improperly doffed off their material, improperly doffed off their PPE, and it got onto their own selves, and they thus brought it home with them at that time. I do think that unfortunately, I think it was two or three of the nurses did pass away from that. And again, we're talking about a very short span. It could be even in the span of less than a week. You get it, and you're already dead from it. And so that's where the only good thing about Ebola is that it is a very quick killer. And so the virus dies out very quickly if it can't jump from individual to individual. Again, I won't spend too much more time on it. If this is something that fascinates you, the hot zone, I believe it's a true story, but they do embellish it quite a bit. There's also a wonderful, I think it's a 6 episode series about the hot zone. If you're not big in the books, but you still want to learn about it. So highly would recommend that. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, but that is Ebola. Next, anthrax. So anthrax, similar to the two before, is also a bacterial infection. So far we have about 3 bacteria for you to be able to focus on. This is naturally found within the soil. And so transmission typically occurs whenever that contaminated soil is picked up by an animal and is either spread to humans by that animal directly or in animal products, most commonly like sheep, cows, or goats. Goats are one of the bigger ones that you kind of hear associated with anthrax. So again, you may already know of anthrax or have heard about it. One of the big things, it's a very hot topic whenever it comes to terror attacks, actually. Anthrax is one of those fear-spreading tools that terror groups may utilize. It's readily abundant. It's just naturally occurring. Well, I mean, all of these are naturally occurring, but can be collected, but it's fairly common as well. So from this, that bottom right corner actually speaks to that, where after the September 11 attacks, there was actually several different post offices that had received and distributed out anonymous kind of letters that were believed to have contained anthrax inside of those that were kind of a secondary attack after that kind of moment. And so this is something that's very big in the media. You may kind of hear as well some of the common symptoms that can occur from that. So fever, nausea, vomiting. The really kind of unique thing for anthrax compared to the other ones are the development of small blisters, sores, or ulcers, just like that in that right side second from the top picture kind of illustrates. So those small blisters or ulcers that can be able to form are pretty common there. So the welder in that is this is actually a pretty common disease amongst welders, actually, just due to the environments that they're in and that they're necessarily around. And so it's just very important if you're going to be messing around with the soil, even just kind of digging around, always be sure to wash up. You never know what kind of bacteria may be kind of harbored in that soil itself. Or as well, same, if you're interacting with any kind of animals, whether your own or foreign animals, I guess if you want to classify that, animals you don't own, always be sure to wash up. Don't touch your face or your mouth or anything like that. And just proper hygiene. That can go a long way. That's really it. That was all 6 of them. So now I wanted to be able to go into a few practice questions. These questions, whether in the quizzes or whether in the exams, sometimes throw off students. And so I wanted to develop a few practice ones to get you kind of in the mindset of what I meant earlier as far as the application. So whenever it comes to these, be thinking that you're given this information, this background, and you have to choose, okay, which of the 6 is most likely going to be at play here. So Tom is camping in a remote location near Bear Lake, Utah. Oh my goodness. After making camp, he discovered that he forgot to pack extra water. As he looked around, he settled that the lake water looks clean enough and fills his water bottle. Unbeknownst to him, a contaminated herd of deer live nearby and frequently urinate in the lake. A few days later, Tom does not feel well at all. So based upon this context, what do you think is the zoonotic disease at play? I guess I don't have to pause. But, so, if you guessed leptospirosis, correct. So again, some of the key indicators, things that we're looking at. So individual, they were drinking lake water. So this has to be something that can be found in water. Probably last for a little while as well, but contaminated herd of deer and also frequently urinate. Again, this is a very common method of transportation that this exposure occurs from. So lives in the urine, gets into the lake, he drinks it. That is a common association or unique attribute of leptospirosis as far as being found in the urine and can survive in water or soil for a long time. Okay, next one. So, number 2, after recovering from leptospirosis, Tom arrived back at his home. As he was relaxing in his front yard, he saw a sickly-looking dog who was drooling excessively. Thinking the dog was hurt, Tom rushed over and was soon bitten on the hand. Remembering his camping trip, he went to the doctor to get checked out, and fortunately, the disease was caught early on. What do you think is at play? Yep, I paused again. I don't know why. But if you were thinking rabies, yes, absolutely. So some of the key indicators, again, from studying, kind of remembering that. So it was a dog, a lot of them caused by dogs, but this was a sickly looking dog who was drooling excessively. That's a unique feature of the 6 is associated with rabies. And so, again, as well, the dog, you could kind of be able to infer the dog quickly bit him on the hand, acting kind of aggressive from that. Again, over-aggression, that is also a sign of possible rabies that's there. The other kind of key indicator, it was caught early on. Again, untreated rabies is still deadly. Even though it's a curable disease, if you do not catch it and cure it soon enough, rabies can be able to take an effect. Okay, now number 3. Tom recently heard on TikTok, social media platform, in case you don't know, that unpasteurized milk contains assist with skin rejuvenation. On a quest to find a supplier, he finds someone that would sell to him jars of milk from their farm. I did not write that sentence well. After drinking the milk, Tom experienced a large amount of joint pain and then died from a swollen heart. That's very unfortunate in the saga of Tom. But now with number 3, episode or event number 3, what do we think is at play? If you had guessed brucellosis, you are correct, and you win the solid gold Cupid doll. So Tom, not only because he heard it on TikTok, no, besides that, some of the key indicators, some things to be able to latch on to, brucellosis is associated with unpasteurized milk. So not necessarily with skin rejuvenation, but unpasteurized milk, connect that with brucellosis. Next, after drinking it, Tom was experiencing joint pain and a swollen heart, both symptoms uniquely associated with brucellosis. So hopefully this is able to give just kind of an idea of some of the questions you might see whenever it comes to this. So again, try to associate each of the zoonotic diseases with some of the unique attributes that might be there. I tried to help you out with a few of them, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, with the underlined kind of elements with it. Use that to your advantage. But I would highly suggest, again, in the readings, there is that table, fill it out. It can help you while you're studying to key and hone in on some of the unique similarities whenever it comes to these. Which ones are viruses? Which ones are bacteria? What's the parasite one? What are the symptoms that are unique to this one to try to be able to figure it out similar to these practice questions. But I hope that this was beneficial. I know you're going to do great. If you have any questions at all, if something doesn't quite make sense or you need another example, please reach out. Please email me. Please comment on the announcement. Please reach out in some way, and I'll be more than happy to help out in any way that I can so that we can make sure to get this down. But I have full confidence in you. Please know that I'm a resource, and good luck the rest of this week. All right. See you guys later.